Okay. Welcome back to Georgia Peachcast.
Yeah.
This is Pat.
And this is Greg.
If you haven't voted, tomorrow is Election Day. Please vote.
Oh, yeah.
All right.
So, it's been a while since we've been with you all. We kind of took an extended summer break. We did get a podcast in here and there, but, we've been we had some life events happen for some of our members. Our sound guy, Will, has moved on to greener pastures. But we're living in a time when it's really important to just pause and reflect on where we are. Okay. And what we're living is truth versus fiction. We are living in an era of our country where the truth is being challenged on all fronts. It's some people call it truth washing, where, you're trying to be convinced that the truth is not the truth. The gaslighting is just above and beyond what any of us would have thought of 20 years ago. And anything that is truth is labeled fake news. And, it's really making a lot of people, myself included, question my sanity. They want us to think that things we thought of as being completely insane would never happen in our country are now normal.
Yeah.
They're trying to normalize the insanity, and we just can't let that happen. This political spin and lies over the truth that's sitting right in front of us has just got to stop.
This is not a political statement. It is truth versus lies, moral versus immoral, legal versus illegal, and constitution versus against the Constitution. We've got to look at it as, again, that simple. Again, it is those true statements that what is going on now is lies, immoral, illegal, and unconstitutional acts that you have to talk about, and it has nothing to do with one side or the other aisle. Those are the details that have to be looked at carefully, and please do your homework and figure out what the truth really is, and you take some time. You cannot put it aside and forget about it.
And that is so true. We live very, very busy lives, and we're living in very, very uncertain times, including economically. And so, as young people are graduating college, trying to build their lives, when Pat and I went through that, we didn't worry about politics. Politics was the safe zone. We didn't have to think about that every single day of our lives. But now we're living in times where you have to be aware of what's going on. Unfortunately. And that's not a political statement. That's the nature of our democracy is changing around us. And it's up to us to be knowledgeable enough to confront it and try to move it in the direction that we know we want our children to live in.
If you disagree, we respect your right to free speech, as you should respect our right to free speech. The only thing that we ask you to do is to really look into anything that you hear or read and understand that this country for 250 years has believed and practiced the rule of law and the Constitution. And many people are questioning those who are supposedly leading us, ignoring both of those, the rule of law and the Constitution. Moving on, anyway, one of the other things that we want to talk about kind of what's being taught in schools or what's not being taught. Greg's a retired teacher. I had a retired teacher as a daughter, and we know that the teaching is under the gun to do certain things and not do certain things. That makes it difficult for them to do, especially in history. In my case, Greg is a science teacher, and he'll talk about it relevant to teachers. But to science, me, I'm a history buff. I constantly think that we're not being taught real history. People are trying to ignore history. teachers are under the gun not to say something too much in one way or the other, in fear that they're going to possibly lose their jobs or get their knuckles slapped, because they're talking about truth and they're expanding upon it, whatever it is. And I won't bring up any specific subjects, but it's just a general statement that they are absolutely under the gun not to do some things. And I know it's also in, relevant to science as well. And Greg, you pop in, man. You're the.
Well, it's always history is written by the winners, right? And particularly in terms of science, after the Scopes trial, science has been under the gun because people who are more faith-based don't like their belief. They feel like science is challenging their belief. The truth is, science is not. Science's job is very simple. It's to help us understand the world and the universe around us and how it works. And, there's no threat there if you are comfortable in your faith and you understand that God gave us a brain to figure stuff out. That's why we're not still crawling in the trees.
Yeah.
Okay. And so when I was trained to teach science in a factual manner and teach the process of science, the steps that scientists use to figure out what's going on in nature. Okay. And that's what has allowed us to have this amazing, life as Americans, is because we embraced science. Our founding fathers embraced science. Literally, George Washington talks about in his journal using the new science of agriculture on his farm. They were Ben Franklin, don't need to say anything more there.
Right.
And so.
And Jefferson, too.
Mm-hmm.
Jefferson constantly was looking into different ways in science. Science is, again, back to everything his architectural work was all scientifically figured out.
Oh, yeah. And so when I was trained to teach science in California, it was all about the process. It was all about how scientists figure things out. And there was a body of facts, of course, that we taught as a basis of understanding. But we were heavily encouraged as teachers to bring students in to understand how science works. Right. And when I got here to the South, I immediately saw a difference in what expectations were.
Yeah.
And, if a parent challenged you, it was a question whether or not administration was going to back you up.
I know.
And, when I'm teaching biology or life science, evolution is a major part of understanding how things work in the world of biology. You cannot teach biology and the modern understanding of biology at all levels without understanding evolution. Yeah. It's hand in hand.
Yeah.
And so I became very successful at navigating that. But I never should have had to.
Right, I understand. In fact, I watched last night on 60 Minutes, they had the president of one of the major colleges. Come on, here memories going back. Anyway, he was talking about that right now colleges are being asked to write off or agree to go along with whatever's coming out of Washington. And as far as I know, no colleges except one in Florida has actually signed that. I'm trying to think of the college from last night. One of the universities, one of the
Ivy League universities,
one of the Ivy Leagues.
Yeah.
Okay, and he was talking about exactly how all of what we've got today has come out of the research and groups within and colleges and universities. Okay, and science is one of those. Along with not so much history, but even their labs. What do you call their labs they have in the universities? Science labs that they're constantly.
Oh, they have their own colleges within each university.
Yeah.
So but the thing is that this is happening in our history classes now too, in that there's a there's a sane washing of, out and out lies that they want us to teach, or they want us to sidestep the truth. For example, they don't want the truth of the Civil War and why it happened to be taught.
Right.
In any schools, much less schools in the South.
Right.
And, having lived here in the South for a while, I haven't seen anything like that in the schools I've taught at. The teachers were always free to teach, what really happened in the South.
Right.
And that is not conducive to a democratic, wholesome society. The students should be taught the truth. The problem is the parents don't want their narrative to be challenged by the teachers through their students.
Yeah.
And for me, this has never been a student problem. It's always been more of a parent not liking what I'm teaching their child.
Yeah.
And I'm not teaching their child bad stuff. I'm not trying to teach them that the world is flat. This is the truth of how science has developed over time. History is the same way. Yeah. We're either honest about our history and we face it courageously, or we're weak and spineless and we want to hide it.
And constantly people are being reminded that if you don't know history and you try to spin history something else, you're liable to repeat exactly what went wrong, what we did wrong, what went wrong in the world. And people are just ignoring that fact that history is there. And again, if you ignore it or try to spin it something else, you'll repeat it, and you'll repeat it in the wrong direction.
And we're currently doing a good job of that.
Yeah, I think we are too.
And I say we because, this is our country. We're in it together. And we have to either fight it or we're complicit with it.
Yes.
Okay. And so, and I think, that's kind of the thought we want to leave you all with today, is that it's up to all of us to challenge people's thinking on these things and to try to help them understand the truth of what is in front of us. That we can either embrace truth and live with it, the ugly part along with the wonderful parts, because there's lots of wonderful things to be proud of in us being an American. Yeah. But if we're going to live the lie, we're doomed to repeat the failure.
Okay, I think one of the things I'm just going to say at the very end, and then you're going to talk about that, is that complicit means that you are responsible as those who are doing, and the actions that are the results of those kinds of things that are being done and coming out of, I have to say it's coming out of Washington. If you are not looking into the truth of the matter, and you are therefore complicit in the lies, so you've got to do your homework and do that. To a degree, we all respect the right to speech according to the Constitution. Your right, our right. Okay, we are a country of 250 years that believed in the practice of the rule of law and the Constitution, and in Washington, they don't believe in either one of those.
Sorry about that.
What'd you do? Cut it off?
No, my phone.
Oh, phone went off.
My phone went off. Sorry about that, everybody.
Okay. All right. We've said our piece. Don't forget to vote. And
so, just in case, if you're in the city of Woodstock, if you live in those environs, then our candidate of choice for Democrats and for mayor is Martha Schindler. She's a very accomplished woman who I think will do a really good job as our mayor. And the really big one too, state-wise, is the PSC, the Public Service Commission. The Public Service Commission helps to set, energy policy and energy rates in the state. And we have had, basically the Republican representation. And quite frankly, we're looking at major rate hikes in the future if we don't have more balanced representation on the Public Service Commission. And so if you live in District 2, you may have seen Alicia Johnson's commercials. If you live in District 3, it's Peter Hubbard. And so both of those candidates are fighting hard to make sure our rates are fair and that we move toward a cleaner energy future.
All right. All right, have a good day, and if you haven't voted, vote tomorrow.
Yep. Take care, everyone. Stay safe out there and, fight for your country.